about the 4 P's of creative learning: projects, passion, peers, and play. I'm particularly passionate about passion. And I think I've learned a lot over the years about the value of passion in learning from my longtime collaborator, Natalie Rusk. We've worked on lots of projects together over the years. We've worked together on the Scratch project for many years and on many other things. And one of our big projects together was the Computer Clubhouse project. I know that was one project where passion was really at the core of what that project was about and how it got started. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about the Computer Clubhouse project.
I had just started working at the Computer Museum in Boston, and I borrowed some of the programmable Lego, the Lego logo materials, to offer a week-long workshop for families, whoever was in the museum at the time. And there was this group of kids who got excited. I remember one of them, when I showed him how to turn on a motor to program it to turn on, he got so excited and he called his friends over. Mira, I was speaking in Spanish to them. Come over and look at this. And they came back each day and they saw like a machine out the window, a crane, and started building that and building different kinds of machines, interactive animals. So then the next week after that program was gone, school vacation was over. The museum was really quiet, and I remember the big doors to the elevator opened up, and they saw me, and right away they recognized me, and they said, "Lego logo?" They asked me, and they wanted to know where, if they could start doing it. But I had returned the materials to MIT since the program was over. And so then they just started exploring the museum. And then it was about a week or two later, I got an email, all the staff got an email saying, if you see some kids sneaking in the museum, call security because they're not supposed to be here. And I said, no, those are my Lego logo. Those are the kids. They're coming here to learn. They're really excited about learning things. But apparently they were, just hanging around and people were worried about them. So we started looking for a place where could they go after school where they could do things like this.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about this, and it felt really so frustrating that these were kids, I think you had said they were having trouble in school, getting in trouble outside of school, and yet they were really passionate about coming into the museum to work on these projects that we saw as great learning opportunities, but there was nowhere for them to go. Yeah,
so we really saw a need to have a place. When we looked around, there wasn't a place where they could start building projects based on their interests. Some kids outside of school who have more resources, their parents do start to see what are they interested in and giving them lessons and giving them mentorship and connections. And so then a lot of other kids who aren't from as resource homes weren't necessarily having that whole social network and that support after school. So we really wanted to build a place like the Clubhouse where kids could be supported to figure out and explore and see what are my interests and then how can you build on those.
Now, I know it sounds easy just to sort of go to kids and say, well, do things you're interested in, but it's not as easy as that. I remember setting up the Clubhouse. There's a lot of things that need to be put in place to help kids identify and follow their interests.
Yeah, so Stina Cook, who's one of the people who worked on it from the beginning with us, she really emphasized the importance of having like projects on the wall and a lot of examples and watching what kids do. And she talked about this one kid who just kept printing out images of airplanes. And so she noticed that. So he wasn't making anything quite yet. And then she started asking him about it and found out why he was interested in airplanes. He was had come as a refugee with his family from another country, and that plane ride made such a positive and such a big impression on him. He was fascinated with airplanes. So then she started exploring what might he do, because it could be making a 3D, animation of a airplane or building something physical, or did he want to make a web page about it? And he ended up working with another kid and really starting to get to know other people. So both getting to know others, but also taking that passion and building from that, he started learning about 3D design.
Yes, I know connecting interest to ideas is one thing that's always been part of what the goal is at the Clubhouse.
Yeah.
I remember kids were interested in bicycles, but then using that as a starting point for learning about gearing or learning about environmental issues, why bicycles might be important. So it's trying to make that connection between interests and ideas has always been a part of what it's about.
Yeah, when I first went to education school, I was surprised that there wasn't more talk about interests. Because just seeing how if a kid has an interest in something like music or bicycles, you can build on that and really that they're passionate about learning about it, then you can build, it's like a natural resource that motivates learning because they want to learn more.
I know as we've designed different technologies and activities together, it's definitely guided us as we think about how to design technologies and activities or spaces. I know I've always been inspired by Seymour Papert's metaphor that when he was developing the Logo programming language, he said that it should have a low floor and a high ceiling. It should be easy for people to get started, but you could grow and do more and more complex things. And I know as we've worked together, we say, well, it's good to have low floor and high ceiling, but you also need to have wide walls, meaning that you have to have different paths for people to move through the activities. I think it was recognizing the fact that since people have different interests, they're going to have different ways of using the technologies. I think it was a similar way when we started work on the Scratch software. And we were doing a programming language for kids. I think some people thought, oh, well, why don't you just do it so they can make games? Because if you just focus on making games, we could design it so that it's a little clearer how to, we can support, we know exactly what their types of things they're doing, we can support it better. But I know both of us felt from the beginning, no, we want to make sure there's of interest to a wide range of kids. And we know kids aren't just interested in games, but they want to do interactive stories and interactive artwork and interactive music. So I know that's something that we have thought about a lot as we design things like Scratch.
And I think it's been amazing to see in Scratch how many kids start working on projects again that show their different interests in whether it's animals and, like you said, games, the environment, and how they go from interest to interest. It's so different than people think of coding or computer programming as such a narrow interest area, as opposed to really seeing that it's a way to express your different areas of interest and connect with other people who are interested in that, whether it's like making animation about your favorite book or TV program or your favorite animal or your favorite cause, things that are important to you. They're doing all of that kind of expression in Scratch.
I mean, in some ways to us, it seems so natural to provide this type of space for kids. But if you look around at most websites for kids and online communities for kids, they're organized very differently. There's a lot of extrinsic motivators used, that the kids are offered points and badges and rewards as a type of incentive to, if they accomplish this, they'll get these points or rewards. And we've really tried to avoid that with Scratch, to try to say it really should come from kids' interests. We don't want them to be focused on gathering points or badges, but rather focus on creating projects that they care about.
I think we're really trying to explore what are these other motivations. Also, the motivation that we've seen of a lot of young people wanting to help others. So building on those interests and ideas. Sometimes it's just, right now I have an idea, and when we do our workshops and we work with young people and also teachers, just seeing how you start to work on, we show some examples, and then suddenly an idea will spark, and you just see how that motivation just comes from like, oh, I'm not sure what I want to make. And then you can just see physically that people get this burst of energy, and that's really what keeps you going when you're going to reach, sometimes there's almost always on a project, a point of frustration, but it's that spark of energy and interest and ideas that keeps you going and think, okay, here's what I'm trying to do, and then makes you want to work through it and either get help or start tinkering and figuring it out yourself.
Yeah, I think we see people are willing to work longer and harder and persist through difficulties when they work on things they care about. I remember even back at the clubhouse, we'd sometimes have classroom teachers come in and see one of their students at the clubhouse who was working away for hours at a time, and they said, the student never did that in the classroom, and it just showed the power that when the kids had that chance to work on things they cared about, they were willing to work for long periods of time.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of talk these days about the importance of grit, about sort of being able to persist. But I know one thing that in our discussions that I've learned from some of the ways you think about things is that it's not just about building up this quality of grit, but that you're willing to work longer and harder if you care about things. It shouldn't just be that building this abstract idea of persistence, but more being able to learn how to follow up on things you care about.
Yeah, and I think sometimes, because in some ways we're really excited to see that the whole idea of young people making things, making projects, and also the whole coding movement that a lot of people have embraced, kids coding. But sometimes I worry that the passion piece might get missing. So sometimes they're very focused on like what tools are they going to use, what are they going to build, or what language are they going to use, without thinking I think, enough
Or learning
about...
learning particular concepts to serve particular problems.
Right. And I mean, we care about those concepts too, but more because they're really empowering, and then you can do a lot with it. So we're really hoping that more people think about, as they're making these opportunities available, how can we tap into the areas of interest? And even if kids, they're just, incipient, just beginning, how can we help them spark their own ideas and express their own ideas in these mediums?
Well, that really seems like a great place for parents and educators to start as they're trying to support kids in taking advantage of these new opportunities of coding and making and other new technology-enabled activities to helping their kids build on their interests is probably the right place to start.
Yeah, because I think sometimes there's a focus on what are the weaknesses and diagnosing the weaknesses of kids rather than seeing what are the strengths, what are the areas of interest. And even if they seem strange, sometimes they start strange, but then they broaden as you meet more people, as you learn more about it. There's always connections to other areas. And if they're supported in that, and in their ideas taken seriously, and then they're able to start expressing them, and then they'll get opinions from others and get feedback and start revising it and building from there.
Great. Okay, well, thanks a lot for joining the conversation to share some of your passions about passions.